To introduce Dan and Cory. They're regional organizers for No Small Acts and co-leaders for Protect the Vote 2026.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having us. I'm just going to share a PowerPoint, but I think we're going to be mostly talking to things rather than, driving off the PowerPoint. Can everybody see it? It's got the Solidarity Warriors logo right in the center.
You can see it.
You can see it? Great. Okay, so we'll just keep going. But I want to pause to just briefly introduce myself. My name is Dan Power. I'm the Massachusetts state lead for No Small Act and the co-lead for Protect the Vote 2026. And I'll let Cory introduce herself. She's more than capable, of course, and pause for her to do that.
Hi, I'm Cory from Texas. I am the Texas state lead and also the Tarrant County, Texas state rep for No Small Act. I joined No Small Act when we first started about 16 months ago, right after the election, about in February, when some of us kind of had to wake up in the middle of the night with a oh no kind of moment. So we were in that group of we got to do something to figure this out and get this turned back around.
Great. So what is Protect the Vote 2026? It is my reaction to that freak out moment, which, mine started around the same time, and it just got more and more and more. But, I just felt like looking at the upcoming midterms, a couple of things jumped out. We had 6 months to work, really 7, but it was 6 from now. And that it was a natural progression. If you look at the mobilization stage where we've had, hands off and No Kings 1, 2, and 3, we've had these national, coordinated mass mobilization actions, which is great. But everybody just goes home at the end of that. Not to diminish what people do, but what I felt was I've got to do more. So I'm really excited about May Day and the other economic disruptions that are coming because I think boycotts, civil disobedience, whatever. I'm ready to do that. I'm retired, so I don't have a job to stay home from, which is good because it means I can put more time into this. But the third layer is, well, what is the end game? Or even if you think of it as like a TV show, if someone used this analogy with me, they said, January 6th was the end of season 1. Now we're in season 2. But I will say, well, the November midterms are the end of season 2, and I want them to be a happy ending. So I want the midterms to go well for us to regain the House, of course, and the Senate, obviously, and then we'll see where the game goes from there. But I'm not going to stand by idly and let the Trump administration just do random crazy things like the Save Act or putting ICE in the polling places or whatever else they might come up with. That's not okay with me. So in the sleepless nights and tossing and turning, I thought, why don't I just do something? Doesn't matter what I do. I'll figure it out as I go. And so I came up with this. I registered the URL. I talked to the No Small Act leadership team, which of course I knew from being a state lead, and built the website. The website is honestly very new. If you get a chance while we're talking, you can go check it out at protectthevote2026.org. But we're trying to adopt as many of the classic, resistance, people-powered principles as possible, but to organize and motivate and inspire and guide people. What can they do specifically around elections? Not that the other stuff's not important. Obviously, it is. But we each have to pick a lane that we kind of specialize in, or at least I do. So my lane is elections. What can we do nationwide to get as many, resistance type people out on the street where needed, economically disrupting where needed, and getting ready for the midterms? Because the vision I had for this was, as much as possible, we're going to need to do in November across the whole country what Minneapolis and St. Paul did in January. Citizen observers out on the street with their cell phones, monitoring and watching over the polling places. Because what we found is that even when they're doing outrageous things like killing Renee Good and Alex Preddy, if there are enough citizen observers there, they don't get away with it. Now, it may seem like they've gotten away with it for now, and I agree that there haven't been any prosecutions, but we had the people there with the cell phones and we captured multiple camera angles that clearly established what happened. Did you want to add anything, Cory, before we go on? I know we have
Uh,
a tight time window.
yeah, no, go right ahead. I'll jump in a little bit.
Okay, well, I know you had some stories to share. I'm just not sure where the best place to do it is.
I'll go ahead then.
Okay,
I'm from
let's,
Texas, and I'm specifically from Tarrant County. And so some of y'all might have heard we got a little bit gerrymandered, and we were already really gerrymandered. So we also just had our primaries recently. Y'all might have heard about James Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett. The only thing I really know to say about those primaries was we made it very clear that no matter who won, both of them were impossible choices, and neither of them could be ill spoken about. And that whoever won, we would all get 100% behind. And so that messaging was really important to get 100% behind them. But we also now, since we've done the primaries, some of us are in the middle of runoffs, and our primaries were in January. Our runoffs aren't until the end of May. So since then, a lot of us have had a lot of time to figure out what I can do to get behind and protect the vote. So specifically for me, I met my precinct chair and I found out who my congressperson was. I found out who my senator was. I had no idea what congressional district I was in or Senate district I was in. And I found out I had a super mega MAGA congresswoman, R plus 24 district. And you know what we did? We flipped the seat over here. And we have got some really great contestants coming up. So if y'all haven't heard about Tarrant County, look into us. So I've been block walking with my precinct chair. I've been block walking with the person who's running against my Congress devil. And I've also, at the local, hyper local level, I've started a neighborhood group chat. I just went and put out some scary flyers on my neighbors' doors when nobody was around and had them set up. So now we've got 8 of us in a little community group chat. I can also say I've just been trying to get involved with as many organizations as I can through No Small Act. I actually got your whistle kits through an Indivisible chat that I was on. I'm a medic for Indivisible, and so that has really put me into planning spaces where I can meet all of these really amazing activists. In Tarrant County, we also had the 287G and immigration things. And so that helped us to get hooked up with the ACLU and Know Your Rights trainings. We also just got the 10 Commandments in our classrooms, and that's disgusting. But that also got us hyper local at the ISD level. So, like they're saying, these primaries really matter because you're setting the stage for all of these other departments and organizations to come behind.
awesome. So I'll keep going. The first part, the phase we're in right now, which started March 28th and is going through May 14th. The real key there is what we're calling the strike to canvas pipeline. So whatever events you're involved in, and I'm going to be going to 2 different May Day Strong events, but in between the 2, I'm going to go door to door in my town, and I'm going to hand out flyers to, try to raise people's awareness of the upcoming election, of course, but also what can they do to help protect it. So we're still working on the content, but we'll make sure you guys have access to that. We want it as widely distributed as possible, not only to tell them about the protectthevote2026.org site, but encourage them to sign up. And we'll talk in a minute about the roles. I know we're not long on time, so I'm going to go fast. The summer is when we're going to do our training. We kind of go into blitz mode on September 1st. We're going to be knocking doors. We're going to be making phone calls. We're going to be training observers and other roles, and be ready to kind of operate on election day to make sure there's no funny business at the polling sites and afterward in the counting sites, because the count is obviously as or more important than the vote itself. And then there'll be an after action report phase where we look at the results and make sure that the actual election did have integrity. So the numbers at the bottom are goals. They're 500 to a million, 500,000 to a million volunteers. 90% of incidents resolved on the same day. Fewer than 10 incidents at the polls with ICE, and 70% of our volunteers retained for the next cycle in 2028. And as much as possible, we want to increase the turnout. Because if you noticed at all from the Hungary election, where Viktor Orban was turfed out after 16 years or 15 years of rule, they had a 78% turnout. So if we can come anywhere even close to that, I think we'll all get the result we're looking for. I do want to talk briefly about the roles. I think the first two are very important and something anybody can do. You can be an election observer just with your cell phone. There's going to be a training available you'll have a badge, you'll have access to hotline numbers. We need at least 150,000, maybe more. I looked it up. There are roughly 90,000 polling places. So, but they're open all day. So we're going to want people to be probably working shifts outside every polling place, and we'll need you to help us find where they are, because I don't know where the polling places are in Tarrant County, but Cory does. And the second role is poll workers, being on the inside, not outside, but helping to conduct the election for the election officials in that area. That may come with training, and it may also come with pay. I've been offered pay. I've actually turned it down for my local town elections. We'll have a legal team, obviously, involved. It's probably not going to be new to us as much as possible. We are, reusing and building on what other people have already done rather than inventing everything from scratch. That's not very efficient. We're going to need a lot of people knocking doors and making calls in the lead up to the election. So some of my, friends on Blue Sky have already volunteered to help with that. We need many, many more. We're going to want to make 5 million calls, to get ready to get people ready for the election, including people that have never voted before or that are not even registered yet. So there's a big kind of get out the vote, register the vote. And then we're also going to have volunteers that are operating 100 county resilience hubs, as well as recruiters and mentors to make this sustainable. We're going to have a weekly group huddle, probably Wednesday nights, but hopefully not conflicting with your meetings, that will help mentor and develop new people as they come in, and not only get them the training and the leadership, but also empower them to then go out and become mentors themselves. And this is the last slide, but it's mostly, a call to action. Where do we go if we like the idea and we want to help and we want to help shape this as activists? You can go to protectthevote2026.org and hit the sign up button. You can choose your role, anywhere from 1 to all 6 roles. It's not complicated. I've done it probably 50 times testing just in the last week or so. As I mentioned, we'll have the Wednesday huddles. Everyone is being asked to recruit at least 2. You tell 2 friends, and so on. That's how we get to our goal of 500,000 to 1 million people, as well as connecting us with your organizations, much like Solidarity Warriors has done tonight to invite us in and let us talk to you. We want to do more and more and more of that. This is very much an explicitly designed to be a partner-driven initiative. Not reinventing the wheel, but working with existing groups in existing areas and leveraging what they've done, but spackling it all together into a unified movement, so that Protect the Vote is not just a snappy Republican slogan. It's an actual, blue slogan to get, to turf out the Republicans, obviously, and any non-fighting Democrat. They're eligible too. If they're not doing the job that we need them to do, we'll run someone else to do that, and we'll get them in instead. That's why the primaries, as you talked about tonight, are so critical. Because, for every Elizabeth Warren, to pick my favorite senator out there, there's a John Fetterman, and some of them will have to go between now and November. But thank you again. We'd love to take questions, and we can stick around and take more questions at the end if we run out of time for them now.
Right.
Thank you both so much. I wanted to interject real quick. I got to work on Elizabeth Warren's first campaign. When I was a canvasser with the labor unions, we went to Boston. I got to stay in a hotel in Boston for 6 months, which was quite the experience, through the hurricane. and got to work on her campaign in 2012 when Obama was running as well.
She is awesome, and I think we need, 99 other senators just like her. Because although I do like Edward Markey as well, and that's a little more controversial because he is 80, but the local opponent to him is already running ageism-related ads about how it's time for fresh blood and blah blah blah. So I don't want to litigate that, but what we need are more people like them and more people from other parts of the country that are just fired up and are tired of living with this and can't take it anymore. Well, okay, let's all run for office and get in there and change things.
First of all, Sumis, I love your name. I think it's very, very cool. I've been an animal person for a very, very long time. Cheryl, your question about the theory behind the primaries, I will get into after we get done. I want to get the questions to our presenters first, and then I'll be happy to explain more about that. The first question we have for you is, what's the best way to stop the Save America Act?
I let Cory go first on that, and then I'll chime in.
Well, I'm really pessimistic, so I don't think that we're going to be able to stop the Save America Act. And what I'm telling all my people is get your papers ready and check your voter registration every day. They're going to pull funny stuff in the polls, and we're just learning how to get provisional ballots when that happens.
And I would go on to say it starts with contacting your senators, because if it's already passed the House, if it can't pass the Senate or it doesn't get brought up for a vote in the Senate, that's the way to kill it in the cradle, so to speak.
My congressperson helped write it.
Yeah, well, you're a special case, Sumi, because you live in ruby red Texas. Personally, I don't think it's going to pass. I think it's controversial enough, and it will be immediately challenged in the courts. I'm sure Mark Elias has already got all the paperwork written to file a lawsuit to prevent it. And, we'll see where it goes from there, because the courts can be kind of like a pinball game where things get ruled and then they get overruled and repealed and unappealed. But I think, it's a good idea to be prepared. So get all your paperwork in order, birth certificate, marriage certificate, death certificate, whatever you need. And we'll hope that it doesn't pass, because, in contacting the senators and saying, hey, even if they're Republican senators, call them, say, hey, you represent me. I pay your salary and you're wrong on this. This is crazy. And, just don't let them stop hearing from us. As soon as they stop seeing the calls and the messages and the, emails, because they track that stuff. All the Senate aides I've ever talked to say, we keep very careful count of every interaction with our constituents and what they said, pro or con, whatever. So it's not wasted to call these people or to message them or whatever that you are against the SAVE Act and you are shocked that they're even considering voting for it.
So just as a follow-up, Faye asked, wouldn't they have to get rid of the filibuster to pass it? Because if it gets filibustered in the Senate, and I can't imagine it wouldn't get filibustered in the Senate, it is not going to pass. However, there's one little trick the Republicans have been very good about using to get around a filibuster, and that's putting it in the budget bill. And if it's in the budget, they can pass it with a simple majority. This is how ICE is still being funded, even though there's a shutdown. And that theoretically may be possible. But as a standalone piece of legislation, this should be filibustered to death. But in this world, I don't take anything for granted.
Well, both sides have played this trick, but I think it's something that maybe they're not willing to do here. So we'll see. But the other thing is there's a ticking clock. If they pass this thing too late, there isn't going to be time to implement it anyway. So they are kind of under the gun, time-wise, to get this done in enough time to give them time to implement it. So it's a we'll have to see thing, and I think we need to be prepared either way. Even if it passes, what do we do? That's obviously going to get folded into the plan, and we'll be coming out with checklists and action lists and, helping people get to the polls and vote, even if the SAVE Act is in place. It's the old Boy Scout saying I have of, there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad gear, which means that we will have to be prepared for anything.
I like it. The next question is, it sounds like you are you're doing foundational grassroots organizing, like basic stuff, building from the ground up in local places to have a larger effect. And you're doing it in a place that there's a vacuum, right? There isn't a lot of other people I know of that are doing this kind of work. How do you plan on working with other groups that are doing things like get out the vote and candidate information stuff that is similar to what you're doing?
Why don't you go first, Cory, on that?
Okay. Yeah, we are encouraging everybody to volunteer in whatever capacity that they can. And we don't have to invent any kind of training. There's so many groups and organizations already doing all of the training. We just need people to get directed to sign up for those things. So that's the amazing thing about partnership is we're not trying to be another group. We're not trying to do something additional. We're just trying to help coordinate all of those pieces that are
Right.
already moving and doing.
Left hand meet right hand. It's a coordination strategy. It's a partner strategy. That's what I used to do in my professional life for many years. I was a strategic alliances manager for Fortune 500 companies, and I would, get together all the various partners. And there were some things where we had up to 4 partners in the room on any given project because every one of them brought their thing to the table. So, obviously it's a little different landscape in that it's political activism, but we're going to be reaching out to and including the work of obviously folks like Indivisible and Mayday Strong. We have a list of 20 partner organizations I'm happy to share offline, categorized into tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 in terms of how important they are to the strategy, and then broken out into mass mobilization / pro democracy type groups versus economic disruption type groups like Mayday Strong versus pure election, get out the vote, register, all of the stuff. Because the thing is, that's all still needed. That stuff we've been doing for years and years and years, and we're trying to do more of it and more of it. Reach underserved communities, do it in 20 different languages, get young people involved. We're going to need to do that and more. But it isn't none of this is really new. What we're trying to bring to the table is to get everyone talking to everyone else and to have a central rallying point, a hub, much like the one we saw today from Dib's World. That was great. Give people a place to go when they don't know where to go, and get ranked high enough on Google that if someone does a Google search for, how do Democrats protect the vote, boom, this is going to pop up. And then from there, it's kind of up to everybody to do what they can. Like Cory was saying, we can't make them do anything. We just think that, if we're thoughtful about it and we say, hey, we think we're going to need 1 million people on election day, then they will come. And, I know I sound crazy saying it, but I don't mind that.
I got over sounding crazy a long time ago.
Yeah. You get used to it. It's like, yeah, just another
fun.
crazy thing I said today.
The next question we have is, how do you go to houses and talk with known MAGA supporters?
I'll take this one first. I'm not sure we should, honestly. The way I normally do door knocking is I have a list, and we rank people based on, are they kind of favorable or unfavorable on a 1 to 5 schedule. So, the ones that really hardcore, diehard, always voted Republican, been a registered Republican since 1960, blah, blah, blah. I don't go there. It's not a good use of my time. I will go to a 5, which is, either registered or leans Democratic, votes regularly, probably pretty receptive. And I would maybe go to a 4. So depending on how you use the intelligence available, I wouldn't go in and get into a 45-minute, debate with a hardcore MAGA guy on his front lawn if he happens to be out mowing the lawn. It's not worth it. You don't win those battles. You got to save yourself and go find the persuadable middle who we can get to our side. And also the young people who have just essentially given up and said, "Hey, I would vote with you if I voted, but I don't vote because it's not worth it. It's a waste of time and doesn't change anything and whatever." Those are the persuadable middle people that are either already with us but have to be reminded to vote, or they're not with us yet because they gave up and said we were losers and Trump can just do whatever he wants. And we're going to show them that that's not right either. We need them. We can use them. We will put them to work, and we will get this long nightmare over with and move on to the next phase of our lives.
A lot of it is inefficiency of energy. You're not going to be able to change somebody's heart and mind at their door. We have talked about how to do that. It is a longer process that I can talk a little bit more after they get done. But go ahead, Cory.
I was going to say that actually, I think our No Small Act Washington group just created a training on how to talk to our MAGA family members. But just on a personal note, my parents and my sister and I, we all stopped talking about politics and church and money, when we were 20 years old, 20 years old. And so 20 years ago, now I'm coming to find out my parents are super mega MAGA Christian nationalists. So I got pulled into all of this because I'm traumatized. And I kept trying to reason with them and turn on the TV and listen to this. And how what? You agree with this? And oh, yeah, I voted just for that. So I just kept getting my heart broken. And, like Dan said, there's just some people that you can't reach. And no matter how much you love them, no matter how much they love you, you find a good therapist and you find some like-minded people and you take some action and you get out there and you get mad and you start meeting people to be your new parents and your new family. And that's what I've gotten through No Small Act.
Same here. And I think it's not that they can't be reached. I just don't think they can be reached through a door knocking format. It's something that requires, one-on-one, build respect, listen. I've seen some of these trainings that are out there and that Cory's talking about. It's you in door knocking, you have a 2-minute conversation. You leave them with a call to action. You hand them a piece of literature. You thank them and you move on. It's not, you don't want to even talk to the MAGA people because that's something that, really is just not suitable for that format.
But I do drive around with, beep beep to impeach and FDT, and you'll stop somewhere and people will get out and thank you and talk to you and get brave with you. You don't have to say anything to reach them.
And what I find is if you're nice to them and love them, it makes them so mad. It's the best way to get back at them. Like if someone gives me the finger, I just I give them a hug mentally. If I'm waving and smiling to everybody, and even if I talk to them on the lawn, I'm saying, "I'm really sorry you feel that way. You're right. I shouldn't intrude on your privacy while you're mowing your lawn. I'll get out of your hair." And just love them to death because that's what drives them the craziest.
Okay, Aaron, I saw you had your hand up. This is our last question.
Yeah, I just reiterate, I just lost a friend, like one of my best friends of 28 years, the October before the election. And if I can't convince him, there's no way I'm going to be able to convince somebody on their front porch. So definitely don't waste your time in this scenario. I also want to encourage everybody on here, if you're part of another organization besides Solidarity Warriors, bring Protect the Vote 2026 to them. Any lawyers, try to get them involved with the observer or the legal observers. And thank you guys so much. You did an excellent job.
Thank you. We're very glad to be here, and we appreciate your time and a great turnout tonight. And we hope to speak to you again and keep you informed as the efforts unfold. Sorry, I'm stammering tonight.
Thank you both so much.